The gavel hadn't fallen yet, but Marcus Thompson already knew he'd lost. He stood alone in family court. No lawyer, no witnesses, just a folder of wrinkled papers clutched in trembling hands, while his ex-wife's legal team filled an entire row. Then the judge did something no one expected. He removed his robe, walked down from the bench, and stood at attention in full military salute. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to smash that subscribe button, because tomorrow we have another powerful story that will restore your faith in justice. Marcus shifted his weight from foot to foot, the borrowed dress shoes pinching his feet. He'd cleaned them 3 times that morning, but they still showed their age. His suit, the only one he owned, hung loose on his frame. 6 months of single parenthood had carved away 20 pounds he couldn't afford to lose. Across the aisle, his ex-wife Vanessa sat surrounded by her legal team. 3 lawyers in suits that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Her perfectly manicured nails drummed against the mahogany table as she whispered to her lead attorney, a shark named Morrison, who'd already destroyed 2 other fathers. Marcus knew from the support group at the community center. "Your Honor," Morrison's voice boomed through the courtroom, "my client has serious concerns about Mr. Thompson's ability to provide adequate care for their son, Jalen. He works multiple jobs, leaving the child in substandard daycare. He lives in a 1-bedroom apartment in a questionable neighborhood. Meanwhile, Mrs. Richardson," she'd already taken back her maiden name, "offers a stable 2-parent household in Westfield, excellent schools, and the resources to provide every opportunity." Marcus felt his throat tighten. Every word was technically true, but they painted a picture that missed everything that mattered. The substandard daycare was Miss Ruby's home daycare, where she'd raised half the neighborhood with more love than any fancy preschool. The questionable neighborhood was where he'd grown up, where neighbors still looked out for each other, where Jalen could play basketball at the park with kids who looked like him. Judge Harold Fitzgerald sat behind the bench, his weathered face unreadable beneath silver hair. He was known as fair but tough, a man who'd seen every trick, every sob story, every manipulation that passed through family court. His eyes moved between the parties, lingering on Marcus's lone figure. "Mr. Thompson," the judge said, his voice carrying the weight of authority, "are you representing yourself today?" Marcus straightened his shoulders. "Yes, Your Honor. I couldn't afford, I chose to speak for myself." Morrison barely suppressed a smirk. Vanessa leaned back in her chair, already confident in her victory. She'd left him for her boss 8 months ago, moved into his suburban mansion, and now wanted to take the only thing that mattered, their 7-year-old son. "Proceed with your response to the petition," Judge Fitzgerald said. Marcus opened his folder with shaking hands. Inside were Jalen's drawings, report cards, photos, everything he could think of to show what their life was really like. But staring at Vanessa's legal team, at the court reporter typing every stumbled word, he suddenly felt the weight of his inadequacy. "Your Honor," he began, his voice cracking slightly before he found his strength, "I'm not here to tell you I'm perfect. I work 2 jobs maintenance at the hospital during the day, stocking shelves at night. But I've never missed a baseball game, never missed a parent-teacher conference. Jalen's reading 2 grades above level because we read together every night, even when I can barely keep my eyes open." He pulled out a photo him and Jalen at the beach last summer, both grinning with ice cream dripping down their chins. "His mother says I can't provide opportunities, but I'd argue that teaching him to throw a curveball in the park is worth more than any country club membership. That's showing him how to fix a bike, how to treat people with respect, how to stand tall when the world wants to knock you down. That's the opportunity he needs." Morrison stood. "Objection, Your Honor. Emotional appeals don't change the facts. Mr. Thompson works 60 hours a week. The child spends most of his time in daycare or with various neighbors." "Various neighbors?" Marcus repeated softly. "You mean Mrs. Chen, who teaches him Mandarin while he helps in her garden? Or Mr. Rodriguez, who's been showing him carpentry? Or Miss Ruby, who's loved him since he was 2 months old?" His voice grew stronger. "My son is being raised by a village. Yes, a village that loves him." The judge raised his hand for silence. "Mr. Thompson, Do you have any witnesses to speak on your behalf? Marcus's shoulders sagged. He'd asked, but people were afraid to miss work, afraid of public speaking, afraid of courts and judges, and the system that had failed so many of them. No, Your Honor, it's just me. I see. Judge Fitzgerald made a note. Mrs. Richardson, would you like to address the court? Vanessa stood, smoothing her designer dress. Your Honor, I don't want to take Jalen from his father, but Marcus is stubborn. He refuses help, refuses to move to a better neighborhood, refuses to accept that Jalen deserves more than. She gestured vaguely at Marcus. My fiancé has already enrolled him in Westfield Academy. They have a STEM program, Mandarin classes, tennis courts. He's already learning Mandarin, Marcus interrupted. From Mrs. Chen, for free, with love. Mr. Thompson, the judge warned, you'll have your chance to respond. But Marcus couldn't help himself. The words poured out like water through a broken dam. She left us. Walked out because she was unfulfilled. I didn't fight it. I picked up the pieces, kept Jalen in his school, kept his life stable, and now, because she found someone with money, she wants to rip him away from everyone who loves him? His voice broke completely then. I know I don't look like much standing here. I know my shoes are old and my apartment's small, but I show up. Every day, I show up. When he has nightmares about the divorce, I'm there. When he scores his first home run, I'm there. When he needs help with homework or just wants to talk about why the sky is blue, I'm there. Tears rolled down his cheeks, and he didn't bother wiping them away. I'm asking you not to punish my son because his father chose love over money. Please. The courtroom fell silent. Even Morrison seemed momentarily affected before shaking it off and shuffling his papers. Vanessa wouldn't meet Marcus's eyes. Judge Fitzgerald leaned back in his chair, studying Marcus with an intensity that made the younger man want to shrink away. Then, something shifted in the judge's expression. His eyes fixed on something, the small pin on Marcus's lapel, barely visible. A unit insignia. Mr. Thompson, the judge said slowly. That pin you're wearing? 82nd Airborne? Marcus's hand went unconsciously to the pin. He wore it on special occasions, reminders of who he used to be before life got complicated. Yes, Your Honor. 2009 to 2013. 2 tours in Afghanistan. The judge's face changed entirely. Unit? 2nd Battalion, 504th Infantry Regiment, Your Honor. Judge Fitzgerald stood abruptly. Everyone in the courtroom shifted, uncertain. Judges didn't stand during proceedings. They certainly didn't walk down from the bench. But that's exactly what Judge Harold Fitzgerald did, his black robe billowing behind him. As he reached the floor, he did something that sent gasps through the courtroom. He removed his robe, revealing a simple black suit beneath. Then, standing in front of Marcus Thompson, Judge Harold Fitzgerald, Vietnam veteran, Bronze Star recipient, and family court judge for 23 years, raised his right hand in a perfect military salute. Marcus's body responded on instinct, straightening to attention, returning the salute with precision drilled into him years ago. For a moment, they weren't judge and plaintiff, but 2 soldiers acknowledging something deeper than law. What happens next will reveal a connection that changes everything. Remind us that sometimes justice comes from the most unexpected places, and prove that the measure of a parent isn't in their bank account, but in their presence. If you're moved by this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more. The courtroom remained frozen in stunned silence. Morrison's mouth hung open. Vanessa gripped the edge of the table. The court reporter's fingers hovered over her keys, unsure whether to document this unprecedented moment. Judge Fitzgerald lowered his salute first, as was proper for the senior officer. His eyes never left Marcus's face. At ease, soldier. Marcus relaxed slightly, though his mind raced to understand what was happening. Your Honor, Morrison finally found his voice. This is highly irregular. Sit down, counselor. The judge's tone brooked no argument. He turned back to Marcus. 2nd Battalion, 504th. You boys were at FOB Sharana when it got hit in 2011? Yes, Your Honor. The memories flooded back dust and fire and the whistle of incoming mortars. Thought so. The judge's expression softened. My grandson, Tyler Fitzgerald, was with the 3rd Brigade Combat Team. Medic called me from Walter Reed, told me about the 504th pulling security after the attack, even though half of you were wounded. Said a staff sergeant carried him 2 miles to the evac site after he took shrapnel to the leg. Marcus's eyes widened in recognition. Doc Fitz, that was your grandson? That was my only grandson. The judge's voice grew thick. Came home because of men like you. Has a wife and 2 kids now. Still walks with a slight limp, but he walks. Judge Fitzgerald turned to address the courtroom, his voice carrying new authority. In my 23 years on this bench, I've seen every type of parent. Rich ones, poor ones, educated ones, struggling ones. I've learned that the measure of a parent isn't in their portfolio or their zip code. He walked back toward his bench but remained standing at floor level. Mr. Thompson served his country with distinction. More importantly, he continues to serve his son, his community. He works 60 hours not because he's absent, but because he's present in the most fundamental way. Providing. Morrison tried again. Your Honor, with all due respect to Mr. Thompson's service, that doesn't change the material facts, doesn't it? Judge Fitzgerald's eyes flashed. This man learned loyalty, sacrifice, and showing up when it matters. You think a fancy private school teaches that better than a father who reads to his son every night despite exhaustion? He finally returned to his bench, donning his robe with deliberate movements. I've heard enough. Mr. Thompson, do you have anything else you'd like to add? Marcus stood straighter. The salute, the recognition, it had awakened something in him. The soldier who'd carried wounded brothers through fire, who'd never left anyone behind. Your Honor, I want to tell you about last Tuesday. I'd worked a double shift, hadn't slept in 30 hours. Jalen had a school play. He was a tree in the background, didn't even have lines. Vanessa didn't come. Said it wasn't worth leaving work early for a non-speaking role. His voice grew stronger. But I was there, front row, coffee-stained shirt and all. And when he peeked out from behind that cardboard trunk and saw me, his whole face lit up. That's what I offer my son, the promise that no matter how tired I am, how hard life gets, how small his part might seem to the world, he matters to me. He pulled out more papers from his folder. These are letters from Miss Ruby, Mrs. Chen, Mr. Rodriguez. They were afraid to come, afraid of missing work. But they wanted you to know that Jalen isn't just surviving in our neighborhood, he's thriving. He translates for Mrs. Chen at the grocery store. He helps Mr. Rodriguez build birdhouses for the senior center. He reads to the younger kids at daycare. Marcus looked directly at Vanessa for the first time. You want to give him opportunities? He already has them. The opportunity to serve others, to be part of something bigger than himself, to know that wealth isn't measured in square footage, but in service. Vanessa shifted uncomfortably, her perfect composure cracking slightly. Judge Fitzgerald nodded slowly. Mrs. Richardson, your turn. Vanessa stood, but the certainty had left her posture. I want what's best for Jalen. Do you? The judge's question hung in the air. When did you last attend one of his games, his school events? I've been busy with the wedding planning and, I see. The judge made another note. Mr. Morrison, do you have any witnesses to speak to Mrs. Richardson's daily involvement in the child's life? Morrison shuffled papers. We have affidavits from the private school, the country club. I asked about her involvement, not her fiancé's memberships. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, Morrison sat down. No current witnesses to daily involvement, Your Honor. Judge Fitzgerald turned to address the courtroom. This court has seen too many cases where money is mistaken for love, where providing things is confused with providing presence. A child doesn't need perfect circumstances. They need a parent who shows up. He focused on Marcus. Mr. Thompson, I have some concerns about your situation. Working 2 jobs isn't sustainable. Your son needs you healthy and present for the long haul. Yes, Your Honor. Marcus's heart sank slightly. However, the judge continued, I also see a father who has sacrificed everything for his child, who has built a community of support through respect and service, who teaches by example that integrity matters more than income. He turned to Vanessa. And I see a mother who left her family for personal fulfillment, which is her right. But rights come with consequences. You cannot abandon your daily role as a parent and then demand primacy based on improved financial circumstances. The judge straightened his papers. It's the ruling of this court that primary physical custody shall remain with Mr. Thompson. Mrs. Richardson will have alternating weekends and one evening per week, with the opportunity to petition for increased visitation upon demonstrating consistent involvement. Vanessa gasped. Morrison jumped up. Your Honor, we object. Noted and overruled. Judge Fitzgerald's gavel raised. Furthermore, Mrs. Richardson will pay child support commensurate with her improved financial situation, which Mr. Thompson can use to reduce his working hours and spend more time with his son. The gavel fell with finality. Marcus stood frozen, unable to process what had happened. He'd walked in expecting to lose everything. Instead, Mr. Thompson, Judge Fitzgerald called out as the courtroom began to clear. A moment. Marcus approached the bench on unsteady legs. The judge leaned forward, speaking quietly. My grandson is a pediatrician now at Children's Hospital. They're always looking for good maintenance staff. Better pay, better hours, full benefits. Tell HR that Judge Fitzgerald sent you. And Marcus? The judge's eyes softened. Thank you for bringing him home. Marcus's eyes filled with tears again, but these were different. Thank you, Your Honor, for seeing a soldier and a father where others saw statistics. That's my job, but you made it easy. Keep showing up, son. That's all any of us can do. As Marcus left the courtroom, Vanessa intercepted him in the hallway. Her perfect makeup was smudged, her composure shattered. Marcus, he waited. Not with anger, but with the patience he'd learned from too many nights walking Jalen through nightmares. I thought I was doing what was best, she whispered. The private school, the opportunities. Those are good things, Vanessa. But they're not everything, she nodded, tears falling freely now. Can I see him this weekend? He's got a game Saturday. First pitch is at 10. He'd love to see you there. Front row? Marcus smiled slightly. Front row. As he walked out into the afternoon sun, Marcus felt lighter than he had in months. His phone buzzed Miss Ruby, texting to ask about the hearing. Then Mrs. Chen. Then Mr. Rodriguez, his village, checking on one of their own. He typed back quickly. We won. Jalen stays home. The responses came immediately. Celebrations, prayers, offers of dinner. Mrs. Chen insisted on cooking her famous dumplings. Mr. Rodriguez wanted to help Jalen build a new bookshelf for his room. Miss Ruby just sent heart emojis, which from a 70-year-old woman who'd just learned to text, meant everything. That evening, Marcus picked up Jalen from school. His son bounded out, backpack bouncing, full of stories about his day. Marcus listened to every word during the drive home, treasuring the normal moment that had almost been lost. Dad? Jalen asked as they pulled into their apartment complex. Are you okay? You look different. Marcus considered the question. He thought about the judge's salute, about recognition and respect, about the job prospect that would let him be home for bedtime every night, about Vanessa showing up Saturday, maybe finding her way back to being a mom instead of just a provider. Yeah, buddy, I'm good. Actually, I'm better than good. Cool. Can we have pizza tonight? Marcus laughed, the sound free and full. Sure thing. And hey, want to invite Mrs. Chen and Mr. Rodriguez? Maybe Miss Ruby too? Jalen's face lit up. Like a family dinner? Exactly like a family dinner. As they climbed the stairs to their small apartment, Jalen chattering about toppings and video games, Marcus touched the unit pin on his lapel one more time. He'd learned in the service that heroes weren't the ones with the most medals or the biggest gun. They were the ones who showed up when it mattered, who carried others when they couldn't walk, who understood that honor wasn't about perfection but persistence. Today, a judge had seen that in him, had stood and saluted not just his service, but his fatherhood. And Marcus would keep earning that salute every day. One bedtime story, one baseball game, one moment of presence at a time. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the same courtroom, but everything was different. He wore a new suit that actually fit, purchased with his first paycheck from Children's Hospital. Jalen sat in the gallery, legs swinging, wearing his Little League championship medal. The same medal Vanessa had cheered him to, front row, just as promised. This time, Marcus wasn't alone. Miss Ruby sat behind him, dressed in her Sunday best. Mrs. Chen clutched her purse, practicing her English phrases. Mr. Rodriguez had closed his shop early to attend. Even Tyler Fitzgerald was there, the judge's grandson, now Jalen's pediatrician and Marcus's friend. Judge Fitzgerald entered, and the courtroom rose. His eyes found Marcus and crinkled with what might have been approval. "We're here for a status review in the matter of Thompson custody arrangement," the judge began. "Mr. Thompson, how are things?" Marcus stood. "Good, Your Honor, real good. Steady job, regular hours. Jalen's doing great in school. His mom's been consistent with her visits. Mrs. Richardson?" Vanessa stood at the other table, this time with just one lawyer. "Your Honor, I want to thank the court. This arrangement, it's helped me remember what matters. I'm requesting to maintain the current schedule. It's working for everyone, especially Jalen." The judge nodded. "I see here there's been consistent child support, no missed visitations, and," he paused reading, "a joint birthday party." "Yes, Your Honor," both parents said simultaneously, then shared a small smile. "Any issues to address?" Marcus cleared his throat. "Just one thing, Your Honor. I wanted to formally thank the court, not just for the ruling, but for the reminder that asking for help isn't weakness. My village," he gestured to the gallery, "they've always been there. I just needed to learn to let them." Judge Fitzgerald's expression softened. "Mr. Thompson, this court sees many broken families. It's rare to witness one healing. Keep up the good work." He paused. "All of you." As they filed out after the brief hearing, Tyler Fitzgerald caught up with Marcus in the hallway. "You know," Tyler said, adjusting his white coat, "my grandfather doesn't talk much about his time on the bench, but he told me about that day, about the salute, said it reminded him why he became a judge, not to separate families, but to save them when possible." Marcus nodded, watching Jalen demonstrate his batting stance to Mr. Rodriguez, while Mrs. Chen and Miss Ruby debated dinner plans. Vanessa stood nearby, not quite part of the group, but no longer apart from it, laughing at something Jalen said. "Your grandfather saved more than a custody arrangement," Marcus said quietly. "He reminded me that I didn't have to do it alone. That seeking help is its own kind of strength." They shook hands, and Tyler headed back to the hospital. Marcus gathered his people, his village, his family of choice and chance, and they spilled out into the courthouse steps together. "Dad!" Jalen called out, running over with his medal bouncing. "Can we all get ice cream to celebrate?" Marcus looked around at the assembled group. Miss Ruby already pulling out coupons, Mrs. Chen insisting she knew a better place, Mr. Rodriguez offering to drive, Vanessa checking her schedule but nodding yes. "Yeah, buddy, let's celebrate." As they walked toward the parking lot, Marcus caught his reflection in the courthouse windows. The man looking back stood taller than the one who'd entered this building alone 6 months ago. Not because he'd won, but because he'd learned that strength wasn't about standing alone, it was about standing together. Behind them, in his chambers, Judge Harold Fitzgerald watched from his window. In 23 years, he'd seen it all, but sometimes, just sometimes, he got to witness something that reminded him why Lady Justice carried scales. Not to weigh money or circumstances, but to balance what truly mattered. Love, presence, and the courage to keep showing up. He turned back to his desk, where a photo of Tyler in his army uniform sat next to one of him with his wife and kids. Both were possible because someone had carried him when he couldn't walk. Today, he'd had the chance to pay that forward. And somewhere in the city, a 7-year-old boy ate ice cream. With 2 parents and 4 grandparents, he'd chosen himself, secure in the knowledge that he was loved, he was seen, and he was home. The medal around Jalen's neck caught the light as he laughed, but it wasn't nearly as bright as the smile on his face, surrounded by everyone who'd fought to keep him where he belonged, right where love lived loudest, in a small apartment with a big family, in a neighborhood where everyone looked out for each other, in the arms of a father who showed up, no matter what. Judge Fitzgerald had stood and saluted a soldier that day, but really, He'd saluted a father who understood that the greatest battles aren't won with weapons or wealth, but with presence, persistence, and the wisdom to know that no one stands tall alone. Sometimes justice wears a robe, sometimes it wears work boots, and sometimes, when we're very lucky, it recognizes itself across a courtroom and stands to attention, honoring not just what was, but what continues to be. The everyday heroism of showing up, because in the end, that's what both soldiers and parents do. They show up, they carry each other, they never leave anyone behind. And in a small apartment that night, as Marcus tucked Jalen into bed, the boy asked, "Dad, why did the judge salute you?" Marcus sat on the edge of the bed thinking, "Because sometimes, buddy, people see who you really are, not just what you look like or what you have. And when they do, they show respect. Like how you see me." Marcus's throat tightened. "Exactly like that. I love you, Dad." "Love you too, soldier." As he turned off the light, Marcus touched the unit pin one last time. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles to face. But tonight, in this moment, everything was exactly as it should be. A father and son, home together, victorious, not because they'd won, but because they'd never stopped fighting for each other. And somewhere across town, a judge fell asleep knowing that sometimes, just sometimes, the system works exactly as it should, recognizing that the true measure of a parent isn't in their wallet, but in their willingness to show up again and again, no matter how heavy the load or how long the road. That's what heroes do. In courtrooms and battlefields, in small apartments and hospital corridors, in every moment that matters. They show up, they stand tall, they salute what matters most, and they never, ever leave anyone behind. If this story touched your heart, reminded you of the power of presence over possessions, and the strength found in community, don't let it end here. Subscribe to our channel for more stories that celebrate everyday heroes, the bonds that make us family, and the moments of grace that change everything. Click one of the videos on your screen now for another powerful story that will stay with you long after it ends. Remember, sometimes the greatest salute we can give is simply showing up for those who need us most.